Thanks, Julie. Well, welcome to Reaching Out. Little did we know when we were scrambling back in August of 2018 that we would really be preparing for a pandemic with our 39 students. We started out planning and developing a really a hybrid plan that it was going to be face-to-face, it was going to be online, and it ended up, due to a blizzard in October of 2018, that we did start out with Zoom. And that was my first long-term experience with Zoom, 15 hours, over 2 days. But really, in hindsight, we were looking at what did rural school librarians need. And often they're the only librarian in their district, and often they attend PD that isn't relevant necessarily to them or their particular situation. And so, hoping to have a blended experience, we pretty much ended up having a virtual experience. And so many of them have told us, especially in the past year, that they were more prepared than they ever would have been for what actually happened and went on in their schools and in their libraries in the past year. So again, this is an IMLS grant with TIE, and we're partnered with the 3 state libraries. We have students from North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. So we have 13 students from each state. And our participants did have certain criteria to meet that rural definition. And our one focus was the resources that could easily be reached and expanded upon, and that would be the open educational resources. But again, the leadership and the confidence and some of those other things that go right along with that. So we started out by looking at what we needed to introduce these working librarians. They all were in libraries. What we needed to introduce them to the background. And we started out with the frameworks from ISTE, Future Ready, and AASL. And at this time, AASL had just come out with new standards in 2017, and then they continued to develop these fabulous crosswalks between the 3 organizations and frameworks. So everything we did was based on that information and background, and it was done through 6 online courses, 3 webinar series. We had 4 webinars over each year in a series, and then 3 TIE conferences, 3 face-to-face workshops. What ended up being a couple of those were virtual. And then of course our Facebook group, which has been fabulous. So Julie, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so as part of the structure, one of the things that we did, we provided 2 books a year that we built the courses around or built the learning around, with that emphasis on developing their tech skills, but also building up their leadership and collaboration in the buildings or in their districts. So we do have all the books here. We don't have time to go through them today, but at the TIE 21 conference, Shelley Rath from Rapid City, West Middle School, and the Reaching Out cohort put together a great poster session. And so because we're librarians and we like books, there's all the books. The key points of all the classes that we did and everything that we did was we really ensured practicality. So every course, every activity had something that was they could apply immediately in their situation. And so because we had them curating content when the pandemic hit, it was super awesome because they were already used to Wakelets and they were already used to, pulling resources together. And so they were able to put stuff out really quickly and really easily in their buildings. One of the huge areas is the confidence building. We've expanded, they've expanded their comfort zones and they're see themselves as leaders. And so they're at the table, which is so awesome. I mean, a number of them have said, during the pandemic, when they were talking about reopening, they were brought to the table to be part of that discussion. Everything we've done is very action oriented, and so a lot of goal setting so and action plans. And one of the things that we almost every course, every online course had some sort of a goal, but it was personalized. So they were able to pick what they needed their goal to be. One of the books we did was Hack Your Library, and every chapter is a different focus. And so we said, okay, pick a chapter, you know, pick your focus. And we allowed them to change. We get, you know, this was like over the course of 9 months, and it was amazing. We had people that redid their spaces. We had people that put more emphasis on reading. We had people that looked at policies, which was super cool. I mean, just because it's like, who looks at policies? And we had a number of them that focused on their policies. And then I think my favorite part is the empowering, because they've built a network. They're collaborating with each other, with colleagues. At the TIE conference, we had five presentations, but it wasn't, I mean, we had one presentation from a librarian from South Dakota and a librarian from North Dakota that were sharing their information that they'd done with the Civil Air Patrol. We had a librarian and her tech coordinator collaborating. It's just really incredible. The cohort put together the Great Educational Reads poster. So there's a lot of sharing. In addition, throughout these 3 years, we've seen librarians take on new roles. One librarian built the website for her entire district. They've taken on new jobs. They've gotten new makerspaces. I mean, it's just really been empowering to see what they've done. So flipping back over to Joan real quick, we've got a few minutes left. We're good.
Okay. Well, in addition to the standards and the digital tools and apps that we went over, underneath all of it was, of course, the open educational resources. And we worked with ISKME, and ISKME, through another IMLS grant, has developed this ISKME framework, which is a way to look at the online materials and evaluate them. And then shortly after that, AASL has also come out with a fantastic toolkit. So those are things that you will most likely be able to click into and look at. But we really talked with our cohort members, whether are you curating or you're dumping? It's kind of that idea of, oh, that is so cool, I have to try it and I have to try everything. Well, no, you don't. And we also know that if we give our staff a huge list of oh, look at, you're doing the Civil War, here's 500 resources, it really doesn't go anywhere. So that looking at curating versus dumping is something that we did spend quite a bit of time on. And we also, although there are many platforms for OER, we concentrated on the OER Commons. And so we introduced Wakelet, which is our new favorite curation tool. So we've given you some examples from the OER there. And these are things, and I think our whole model could be easily adapted to the college level, or like if training for public librarians. It all crosses over, and of course we all collaborate together. The other curation tool that Julie and I use quite a bit, and Julie Moore, is the DGO. So we've given them lots of choices, and of course some of them had already been curating, some of them had never heard of it. We were all at different places with our abilities and our use of the digital and virtual world. So then, of course, part of the big thing with OER is finding something that's there and knowing about the copyright and the Creative Commons licenses and how to remix that. That we found is a very difficult thing, but we've given you a little bit of information on that. And are we going to click into some of that, Julie, or no?
Oh, do you want me to? Sorry, do you want me to go in?
Yeah, go click into it.
All right.
All right,
We
so for
have,
instance, like as my 8th grade history teacher and the ELA teacher are working on Anne Frank and World War II. So here's this great, actually it's fantastic unit that is in OER Commons, but it wasn't quite what we needed. So it tells you right in OER Commons, and it has become so just click and go easy within that platform that you can remix it. So I happen to have done this one because I was both the librarian and the ELA teacher at the time. We took
and you
this
were
and
working with the social studies teacher.
yes, and we took this and we made the focus more on Anne Frank's father to make it something that would be useful to go along with what we were doing. And it's just a fantastic resource. I myself would never have created this, but to have the right to remix and make it work and personalize it for my students was fantastic. And that's another one of the great, I'd say, benefits of the OER, which we know we struggled a little bit. OER is used more now at the college university level than K-12, but we think that's changing. And
Well, I know it's changing because with everything moving more online and schools moving more one-to-one and using a learning management system, it's easier to share. I did drop in the chat just because I know it's hard to listen all the time. You can go ahead and drop your favorite curation tool in the chat because as librarians, I'm sure we all have great, great tools. So with the last 4 minutes, our last thing that we need to do was contribute. And so they needed, all of our learners this last course are creating their own lesson. And so this is one that Joan has created, and she kindly put my name on it too. So that was very nice of her. But it's Joan's lesson. And the cool thing is people have remixed it, and so that's pretty awesome. When you go in and look around, you'll see that people have remixed this lesson.
So that's the last thing our cohort members are doing right now. They're all putting their own original lesson into the OER Commons, because often, we find great ideas, we take it, we change it up a little bit, we remix it and we use it, but we don't share it back. And that's the key, is the sharing it, putting it somewhere where it can be shared back so someone else can also use it and remix it. And so really over these 3 years, many of our cohort members will say, I'm going to miss our family. The Facebook group has been our main communication tool, and they ask questions, they help each other, whether it's related to the actual grant work or not. And so we will sustain that Facebook group, but we've also prepared them. We feel like we have scaffolded them to independence so that their tech proficiency has definitely grown. Some of them did not even use social media whatsoever for their school, their library, or themselves. So that has grown. And of course, Facebook has turned out to be the favorite. And then we really have seen the collaboration through their learning management systems, the OER Commons, and more. Collaboration with each other as librarians, and within their schools, of course, and between schools if their district is a little larger. So we think that our model is a great one to replicate, and soon, not yet because we're not quite done, we'll have a guidebook that goes through all of the steps so that you can remix the model. It will also be up in OER Commons, so that with Creative Commons license, so that you can remix the model and hopefully use it in your areas.
Awesome. Well, so that wraps up our session. So thank you so much for attending, and great comments in the chat. Thank you. And if you have any questions, you feel free to contact Joan or I, and we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. We could talk